Hello and welcome back to the Kingdom of Rizia with Ramus Taurus. On today's episode, we are doing a meeting with Rusty Montoro. On the banks of the Zapana River in Branez stood Palace of Verena, almost as opulent as my own palace. It had once served as a summer residence for my ancestors, the Rubez family. Today it was the home of Rosello Rusty Montoro, the CEO of the Rizian Royal Gold, and the wealthiest commoner in the country. I stepped out onto the deck of the Rizia, on the Riziana, as the yacht approached the palace private dock. Hugo and Alina were already there, gazing out at the grounds. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Palace Verena, without its water garden, is no palace at all. I think it's an improvement myself, but what do you make of this, Your Majesty? I looked in the direction she was indicating. The water garden, once a tranquil oasis filled with blossoming flowers and gently burbling fountains, had been replaced with a gigantic, gold-tiled swimming pool. Remind me, how did a man like him take over the most powerful corporation in Rizia? He's got a knack for being in the right place at the right time. Legend has it he worked his way up from a regional mine supervisor via a series of backroom deals and boardroom betrayals. Suddenly, a group of armed men exited the palace in a single file. They positioned themselves at equal intervals around the docks. They followed us with their eyes as we disembarked and walked towards the Palace of Veneranda. As I passed the large guard, I noticed he was wearing a badge that read Palator Security Solutions. Good morning, sir. He stared at me with a look of non-comprehension. Rusty rose from where he'd been sitting and rushed over to us. Antona! That's no way to treat our royal visitors. The guard reluctantly bowed to me. Rusty ushered us past him and showed us to a set of chairs. The gold magnate, red hair was streaked with gray, but his eyes had a youthful mischief about them. On behalf of all of us at the esteemed Rizian Royal Guard Corporation, I do hereby extend my cordial greetings. He trailed off with a grin. Heck, I was never one for formalities. Welcome to my palace, Your Majesty. It's a pleasure, Rusty. He turned to Hugo and Alina. Your Grace, Madam Treasurer, haven't had a sit-down with you two since the last man wore the crown. My uncle gritted his teeth. You must meet my honorable brother, His Majesty King Vero. May he rest in peace. Now, Hugo, Rusty paid his respects at the funeral like everyone else. She shook Rusty's hand. He beckoned for us to sit as his butlers brought over water and fresh fruit. So what's the occasion? I couldn't help noticing you've been crisscrossing the kingdom lately. No royal tour would be complete without a visit to your old friend Rusty. A shame Her Highness couldn't make it, too occupied with her latest beau. One dance does not a beau make. We'll thank you not to speculate about Princess Vena's romantic prospects. Please tell me what this meeting is about, Rusty. We don't have all day. Well, all right. He sat back and unbuttoned the top button of his shirt. Bing. You know, there would be no Rizia without the Rizian Royal Gold. I'd say the partnership between your company and the Marquis benefited both of us equally. Sure, Your Majesty. My point being, it's fair to say that what concerns me concerns this country. And what concerns me is this. He picked up a paper from the table next to him. It was a flyer with a few sentences written in both Rizian and Wessex. Supervisor at my mines are picking up hints that the workers are holding after-hour meetings on the subject of unfair conditions. Have you tried, I don't know, improving those conditions? Meeting workers' demands is like feeding zoo animals. The more you give them, the hungrier they get. Have there been any accidents lately? Anything that might have triggered this? Accident, I've been a part of this job since the dawn of time. Used to say they weren't real minor until you were missing a finger. What do you need all 10 of them for, anyways? As long as you've got enough to swing a pickaxe. Yeah, you know? What do you need all 10 of them for? That's a joke. That's a joke. Hugo cleared his throat. Do you have a request of His Majesty, Mr. Montoro, or have you merely invited us here to complain? Not complain, warn. I'm not going to change a thing about the way my mines operate, so sooner or later this is going to land in your lap. RG's value has been going down since we lost Zeal. New safety regulations might sound fine and dandy, but that'll be a death blow to our bottom line. Your company will rebound when we get Zeal back. I sure hope that's in the cards, Your Majesty. That little nub of land is home to some of the fattest gold veins my company ever found. No way Welland could mine it all in 25 years. You're saying that RG's mining operations in the region could pick up where they left off? Yes, ma'am, assuming we got it back without making too much of a mess. How much revenue would we stand to lose? Hard to say. Implementing the regulations themselves would cost a pretty penny. And what do you think will happen if we pass those costs on to our trading partners? They'll hit the road faster than my first ex-wife. Alina raised her eyebrow. We have been seeing more global competition in the gold market, unfortunately. But for now, our product is of high enough quality that Rumburg is willing to pay more for it. Yes, but if the price rises further still, I'd rather not admit it, but Mr. Montoro may have a point. We still have the nifty international trade zone, don't we? Well, that's the other thing. I'm sure you know all about Alma Sultana. She's not a threat. She wouldn't be if she was stuck in governing Morella, you know, like she was elected to do. Woman's never picked up a chisel in her life, and she suddenly knows how to run the MITZ. She started calling for regulations over there as well, or worse, nationalization. Morella doesn't have unilateral power over international trade zone. Rizia, Lesbia, and Vaxlan all of us say. And which one of those Mr. Saltea has been cozying up to on this subject? If she and Hegel get their way, Rizia will either lose its mining rights, or our boys will have to pray to Meliev before going to work every morning. That still leaves us in Lesbia. It's hard to say if we can count on Lespia's cooperation. Of course, they abhor Vagsland, but we don't have the friendliest history with each of them either. We'll have to keep a close eye on this. Aren't most of your miners labor hands from foreign countries? Would the regulations even apply to them? They're fixing to have it that way, yes. The folks pushing for those regulations, are a mix of labor hands and honest-to-goodness Rizians, with some support from the Suzerains to boot. I see what they're going for, I really do, but giving them everything they want would damn near bankrupt me. A little extreme, don't you think? I agree we should impose more regulations than necessary, but investing in safer and healthier employees would lead to profit in the long term, foreigners included. Rusty took a big bite out of the watermelon slice. He wiped the juice off his chin. Look, you know me, I don't mince words. I think you already realize that it's in both of our interests for you to back me up in the squabble. But hey, I'll sweeten the deal. Keep your administration nose out of RRG's business, and I'll sell you back the share I took from your father. Alina pushed the chair back and stood up. I'm going to recuse myself from this conversation. Where's the ladies' room? Just inside. If you've never sat on a solid gold toilet, you're in for a treat. She forced a smile as the butler escorted her out. Hugo, Rusty, and I glanced at each other. Any opinions on this, Hugo? What you're proposing is incredibly crass, Rusty. He looked at me. But increasing the state's share in RG would serve us well. Besides, which giving in to workers' demands might embolden them to a dangerous degree. You're a smart man, Your Grace. You and I should go out for a beer someday. Hugo looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. Yes, beers. I would enjoy that. More gold revenue for our kingdom is tempting, but often comes at the expense of workers' lives. You've been listening to the naysayers too much, Your Majesty. We miners know how to protect our own. I won't keep wasting your time. Do we have a deal or don't we? This is another one of those situations where, man, it's the same thing. And when I was playing in Swordsland, when I was playing as come on, when I was playing in Swordland and Welland gave me that freaking good deal, and and the comment was like, you know, well, it's a good deal. Well, the deal was too good to pass up. Or that's what he'll be telling himself when he goes to sleep at night. Same situation here. Let's go. Let's go. That's what I'll be telling myself. I accept. I'll make sure no new regulations pass on mining, and you'll let the kingdom alter its stake in RRG. Rusty smiled. Perfect. This could be the beginning of something beautiful. Alina stepped back to the room. That was colder than I expected. Are you gentlemen finished? Hugo practically sprang from his seat. It's been a delight, truly, but we must be headed back to Port Tudrzan. And here I was about to ask you to stay for lunch. So soon, Your Majesty? Please excuse my uncle's hastiness. Lunch would be lovely. Rusty cracked a triumphant smile. Sorry, Your Grace, but I got to pretend to be civil to me a while longer. Hugo and Lena sat back down as the butlers began bringing out a midday meal. Yeah, well... Hey! The Nurse Republic of Durdia has gone up to neutral with me now. Let's go. I'm assuming it's because of the good relations I popped up with allowing those people to come through my nation. Erdmarg signals joining non-alignment movement. The King of Erdmarg announces a decisive pivot towards the non-aligned movement, marking strategic diversification from his historic alignments. This move, seen as a bid to craft alternative geopolitical paths distinct from neighboring Rumburg, challenges the prevailing influence of both Grace and the ATO. Coupled with the launch of an ambitious 10-year industrial development initiative, Erdmarg potential realignment could have far-reaching effects on the global stage, particularly by offering a third-way approach amidst the polarizing politics of larger alliances. Surveying nears completion on potentially massive new gas field in West Antasia. A gas field in the western Artesian Sea could contain massive new reserves, according to geologist source interviewed by Geopolitico. The Kingdom of Rizia and the Grand Duchy of Pales are still surveying the borders of this recent discovered field, with conclusive ownership still yet to be determined. However, all signs already point to a resource of great strategic significance. The international community has its eye on this developing situation. First we'll check out football industry shows signs of stagnation. The Rizian Football Federation expressed concerns over diminishing quality and appeal of the nation's football leagues, particularly the second and third tiers. This decline not only impacts the cultural fabric of Rizia, but also poses economic challenges. The Federation contemplating various strategies to invigorate the industry, ranging from increased funding and marketing effort to introducing foreign talent to enhance competitiveness. We will ensure our football industry remains vibrant. I don't know how we're doing that, but we're doing it. I spent nothing, so I just said something, basically. I said, we're making sure it stays vibrant, and then I walked away. Imagine I just made a speech and then done nothing to help. Which, you know, yeah. Royal visit to Monteclar. From anywhere in the city of Monteclar, you could look high into the hills and see the ruins of Fortress Cesaro. Expanded and fortified over the centuries, it had served as a stronghold for the city's inhabitants from the early years of the Resident Empire till its destruction in the War of Rizian Succession. Today the ruins served as a symbol of Monteclar's resilience and that of its governing house. Perhaps that was why Lucitia had invited me here for a tour and private talk. For safety's sake, a wooden walkway had been constructed over the crumbling remains of the parapets. Lucita and I walked along it until we came to a northwestern corner. How do you like the view, Your Majesty? From here we could look down into the valley, where the provincial capital sprawled across the fast-flowing Alka River, and up into the foothills of the mountains opposite us. Honestly, it feels like, these guys are definitely, like this is definitely the part I'm, of my nation that I'm doing best with so far in working with, I think. Mostly because I've been going full-on support of war and security, so, yeah. I remember it well from my military days. I've come here as a child, as an army recruit, and as a duchess. It's always different, and always the same. The fortress was closed off for our visit, but a crowd had gathered just outside its walls. We waved down to them, then turned away. Following the walkway towards the former armory, our aides and guards stayed a respectable distance behind. Not even the Markians could destroy this place, you know. Only when Rizia's noble houses or families turned against each other did it finally fall. She paused and turned to face me. It took years for the Azaro and Taurus families to repair their bond. I hope our houses remain harmonious through your reign. Nothing means more to me than keeping the favor of House Azaro. It's great to hear you say that. Your father and mine were close, Your Majesty. General Tadius told me that he felt free to express his true opinions to the king with no fear of repercussions. Lucitia bit her lip. She seemed uncharacteristically nervous. I'd like it if you and I had a similar relationship. How can we when we barely even know each other? A fair point, Your Majesty. She trained her eyes on a lizard that was crawling up the wall next to us. You have my permission, then. Ask me about anything about myself. Let's see, do you have any hobbies? I've always enjoyed archery when I've had the time for it. My father and I used to play chess together. We still do when he has lucid moments. Maybe you and I can play sometime. She gave me a taunting look. If you're prepared to lose, Your Majesty. Nice. Why did you follow the Azaro family's footsteps? You could have chosen any path in life. My path was chosen for me after my uncle was killed in the uprising. Even as a young girl, I knew that marked a turning point. My noble blood didn't make me safe anymore. Your words ring true. I had the exact same thought after my kidnapping. I joined the military so I'd never get caught by surprise like that again. Well, why aren't you married? As an Azaro, you should have been paired off the day you came of age. She grimaced. They had a match chosen for me, of course, but my father allowed me to break off the engagement when I joined the military. By the time I got out, I was considered too old to be of use in the marriage arena. You are what, 28? That's ancient. That's ridiculous. A woman like you should be swarmed with suitors. A wry smile formed on her face. I'm not so pathetic as to base my self-worth on what men think of me, but thank you for the compliment. Do you have any questions of less intimate nature? Let's drop the small talk. You brought me here today because you want something. She looked at me with flinty eyes. Is that so surprising? Everyone wants something from the King of Rizia. All I'm requesting is a chance to speak with you without this stultifying formality of the council. That's reasonable enough. Go ahead, then. Well, Your Majesty, my house and I had questions regarding a recent meeting in Salabas. Sources say you were quite deep in conversation with the House Suzerain heir. It's all strategic. Without the Suzerains on my side, I won't be able to prevent another uprising. That's what he led you to believe. His house would help you stop an uprising? You might as well use gasoline to put out a fire. The owner of the entire house is still suspect to have ties with Acacia. That isn't surprising. Arcacia has eyes and ears everywhere. They and their allies have spent the better part of this century trying to undermine us. All the more reason not to trust that man around your daughter. My daughter is allowed to consort with whomever she wants. Surely you understand that as a modern woman. As the woman in charge of the country's security, all I see is an agent of chaos attempting to get cozy with the royal family. We had come to a small grassy patch in the shade of Fortress' southern wall. Lucitia gestured for me to sit down. Honestly, the thing is, I kind of agree, but I made a promise. I'm sticking to it. I'm not jumping in on her life. It's her choices. It's her deal. I am going to recommend to her 70,000 different options, and if she refuses all of them, oh well. But I'm going to give her as many options as I can if possible, of anyone else to choose. But if that's what she ends up choosing in life, that's what she chooses. I mean, I'm going to beg her not to. I had one more thing I wanted to bring up while we were alone. When I took over my father's position on the Royal Council, he gave me a trove of his old files, which between standard purchase orders and international security reports, I found this. She reached into her pocket and unfolded a thin square of paper. On it was a map of Pales, overlaying the outline of Grand Duchy were arrows, diagrams of tanks and battalions, and hastily scribbled instructions. Some of them were in my father's handwriting. Look at the date, 1949. Though they were plotting another attempt on Pales, that's not surprising. Had this been attempted, it would have been a complete rout. All glory to King Valero, but perhaps it's fortunate that he died before this could be carried out. It is possible that whoever murdered him knew about this plan. If he was murdered, that could have been served as motivation, yes. The timing wasn't right to reconquer Pales in the 20s, but perhaps now. You too? My father would be with you, of course. The Azaros never got over losing their access to sea, but I don't see any merit in taking back Pales, at least not for historic reasons. Are you saying there are other reasons? She looked away. I don't want to sound paranoid, but with Lesbia and ATO and Morella becoming closer to Vagsland and CSP, I do wonder whether our nation will get swallowed up in the superpowered conflict. That's a legitimate worry. Look at what happened to Welland in the 1930s. Arcacia United Cortana nearly destroyed it by proxy in a rush to gain access to oil, and now Pales may be sitting on an even more valuable resource. So you think we should conquer Pales for its own good? Conquer is such an old-fashioned word. Think of it as a chess game. Sometimes it's best to remove certain pieces from the board before it's too late. That doesn't mean I think we should attack Pales again. Using diplomacy to get them on our side would be a more effective tactic. My war counselor's urging me to practice diplomacy. Now I've heard everything. War should be a last resort, Your Majesty, contrary to what your or my father would say. If you wanted me to, I could send a task force to Pales to monitor the situation more closely. But my department has the funding already. It wouldn't eat into our budget. Our budget. Oh well, I mean, yeah. If it won't hurt our budget and you can do both, yes, immediately. That sounds wise. Do what you need to do. Thank you, Your Majesty. She began standing up. May I keep that map of Pales? I don't see why not. She handed me the piece of paper. I took a last look at it. You know, I will do everything in my power to prevent conflict with Pales, but just in case. If it does come to that, you'll need a better strategy or a better army. But speaking of the military, it's nearly 4. Let me show you something. She gestured to the stone wall behind us. A metal ladder led to the top of a small watchtower. Now the fortress is highest surviving structure. Lucitia scaled it in a matter of seconds. I followed her to the top of the tower. From this side, we could see Camp Domus, the country's largest military training facility. It stretched far into the distance, with hundreds of barracks clustered around grounds that simulated all types of terrain. We looked down into the main square. A platoon of some 50 soldiers, mostly men, but a few women as well, was prepared for an exercise. Remember the code? A drummer to the side of the square beat out a complex rhythm on a snare. Long, short, that's an inverted wedge, right? The soldiers snapped into a V-shaped formation, narrow at the back and widening towards the front. Very impressive. Still the best trained soldiers in South Marcopa. Another rhythm came from the drum. 2 rim shots followed by a rapid roll. Extended line spreading out into herringbone. Almost unconsciously, she started moving along with the soldiers, but as she put her left foot down, the section of the wall beneath it suddenly gave way. She began falling backwards. I grabbed her arm and pulled her towards me to safety. She looked up to me in surprise, breathing heavily. I held on to her for a few long seconds. Her eyes softened as they met mine. Nice reflexes, Your Majesty. From below, a camera clicked. Oh, God! They're everywhere! They're everywhere! That's hilarious. That is honestly so freaking hilarious. That just... that was so comedic. Oh my God. I did not expect that at all. I did not expect that at all. That's great. I love that. I love that. That's probably really bad, but that's hilarious. Oh, thank goodness. I love that. Anyways, from below a camera clicked. A news photographer had managed to reach the base of the fortress and capture a picture of us. Lucitia hurriedly stepped away from me, brushed herself off, and turned to the guards. Now, who the hell let that happen? You are to find this photographer and prevent the publication of this picture at all costs. You heard her. I'm embarrassed of this obvious security lapse. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. The guard nodded. One of them sprinted off the direction of the photographer. To be continued, Duchess Cesaro. She gave me a coy smile. I hope so, Your Majesty. I am swooning over here. I am swooning in real life over here. Oh my goodness. Oh, my shipper heart can't take this. Like, I get one little moment of things that I wasn't even expecting, and I'm swooning and collapsing over here. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Darn it, my shipping heart's like, one thing happened. Now I have to ship it and make it happen. I mean, I have control here. I can try to push things to happen. Unlike if this was like a TV show or a, comment thing. They won't even read. Whatever. The smile was still on her face as we left the fortress. Darn it. Oh my goodness. I hate myself sometimes. No, I don't. But I just find it funny. RFC Villancourt describes empty stadium. Third League Football Club, Royal FC Vinricourt, has raised the alarm of falling ticket sales, with the club on good days unable to sell out even half of their stadium. This reduction in sales is affecting the club's ability to invest in its youth infrastructure, which traditionally has provided a multitude of players for Rizia's top teams. Gasfield survey reaches completion. The Rizian surveyor ships sent to assess the boundaries of Arius Gasfield have returned to Calbiz and reported their findings. They've discovered that at least half of the field lies within the 200 kilometer or km, I don't know if it's kilometer, I don't know stuff, radius of the island, giving Rizia claim to it. Our foreign minister has contracted Palestinian Duke Axel Reinhardt. It is expected a meeting will be arranged to discuss these findings as our country's next steps. We have some news. Swordland enters economic recession despite efforts. The shadow of recession has descended upon Swordland, marking a period of economic strife under President Owald Afonso's leadership, representative of Turk Soul's post-Civil War era. Despite Afonso's aggressive pursuit of growth via new trade deals, his strategic run being beleaguered by entrenched political opposition and a global economic slowdown. With analysis split on the recession's longevity, the pressure mounts on Afonso to navigate Swordland out of economic peril before the end of his term, an endeavor fraught with uncertainty and specter of history's judgment. Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. I think I am going to... because now is the time where I should use anything that will be useful for future rounds. And I think, let's see. I'm out of... I can't do those because I can't do that because I no longer have 4 authority. I could remove the blasphemy law. That would give me a budget per turn. I do want to be able to, yeah, even though I'm not doing this deal, I do want to modern the McKee's port at some point. Just because I do think, one, just getting ships and stuff going on, but also just because she talked about it being able to help with gold production, and I think that would be very useful. So I would like to do that at some point. So I think I'm going to, right at the end, just legalize a illegal substance for an extra budget per turn. I think it's important to, oh, we're getting +1 per turn from intelligence services now. Nice. But I think just getting that extra budget per turn is going to be very useful at the moment. So I think I'm going to do it, even though she disapproves of it. Which I have been mostly like, what does war and security approve of? Let's do that. But I think I want to do this. It'll reduce the burden of the judicial censor. It'll get rid of the illicit trade because, well, the illegal trade's not happening if it's legal. And it'll force them, and it allows us to regulate. And if we regulate it, it'll get rid of, it'll make it less bad, but more available. Funds fully allocated for the new... Yeah, it gives budget... Yeah, I'm gonna sign it. Let's hope it doesn't, ruin everything, but I'm gonna sign it. Legalized recreational substance use. The kingdom has decriminalized and regulated the use of certain recreational substances. Under this policy, individuals are permitted to use specific substances for recreational purposes without facing legal penalties. The government typically imposes regulations and restrictions to ensure the safe and responsible use of these substances, while also generating revenue through taxation and oversight. Yeah, we now get another +1 from legal drug taxes. Recreation and narcotics soon to be available at your local pharmacist. In a radical change of policy, the Palace has announced a limited legalization of certain illegal substances, including not limited to notorious yishiash and rat spice. This drastic change of approach follows growing international consensus that harm reduction and removing narcotics from the legal circuit leads to less violent crime. Funds usually reserved for cracking down on the drug trade will now be diverted to education, addiction treatment programs, and other public health initiatives. Only licensed healthcare professionals like pharmacists and doctors will be allowed to sell these newly legalized narcotics. Riza's neighbors worried about drug legalization. After Riza's drastic move to legalize an expansive list of illegal substances, including infamous drugs like yishash and rat spice, some countries in the region have expressed their dissatisfaction with the Rizian kingdom. Fear exists that Rizia will become a safe haven for smugglers and turn into a distribution system for the entire region. Dirtia, which in recent years has struggled with drug influx from a guard, warned that it's considering putting travel restrictions to Rizia's place. Dirtia, please don't get annoyed at me. Please. Alright, let's continue. 2, what's the next one? Between Seas. Oh, we're officially in Chapter 2. I'm not sure if we were already in Chapter 2 officially yet or not. We are now. No, we are just into Chapter 2, judging by how it says Chapter 1, King Ramus down there. So, yeah. Oh. Respond to Monkey's Palace welfare protest. A central crowd has amassed at the palace gates in Monquez, vocalizing their concerns over lack of access to quality welfare services and increasingly difficult living conditions. The monarchy can choose to disperse them, allow their peaceful protests, or offer assistance to improve welfare spending across the nation. Promise increased health and education funds. Interesting. Well, we'll decide that and continue forward in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And as always, peace.